From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting. Originating from the County Administrative Center, located at 1115 Truxton Avenue in Bakersfield, California. Grounded in ideas, energy, and innovation, Kern County's vision is to be a driving force for the world's fifth largest economy. And our mission is to exceed expectations of the communities we serve, changing the way they feel about government, those who manage it, and the services it provides. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Peters.
Here.
Supervisor Parlier.
Here.
Supervisor Flores.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, January 14th, 2 p.m. meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. We will first hear from County Counsel Margot Raizan for a report on actions taken in closed session. Thank you, Ms. Raizan.
Good afternoon. This morning in closed session, you met on items 14 and 15, and there is no reportable action.
Thank you. We'll begin by considering the consent agenda. Agendas are located at the tables near the doors for anyone wishing to follow along. All items listed with a capital C, capital A are considered to be routine and non-controversial by staff. If the public feels otherwise, they're asked to and welcome to comment on such matters. They may be pulled from consent and heard in their listed sequence should a member of the board wish to do so or proceed in that matter. Otherwise, we want to hear your comments and consider them before our vote is taken. Consent matters begin on page 2, and they include item 4 on page 3, item 5 and 7 through 10 will be on consent, and item 6 has been withdrawn per the department and will not be considered today. So there will not be a vote on 6, but matters 5 and 7 through 10 are up for consideration on consent. On page 4, items 11 through 17, so all items listed. And on page 5, all items listed 18 to 20. Are there any members of the public who would like to make comment on the consent agenda? If so, now would be the time to do so. Please come to the front, state your name for the record, and give us your thoughts. Okay, moving right along from consent, I will then come back to the board and ask for questions or actions by my colleagues.
Motion on consent. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Excellent. We'll move to public presentations. This portion of the agenda is reserved for members of the public who would like to address this board on matters that are within the jurisdiction of the Kern County Board of Supervisors, something that we have influence or ability over, but are not on today's specific agenda. We've already handled the consent matters, and what we have is one remaining planning item. So if you're here on any other matter and you would like us to hear your thoughts and consider it, please come down now and provide that information to the board. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandra Melgoza. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments. I am here today in my personal capacity, not representing any organization. As a resident of District 5, I stand here uplifting the voices of many individuals who are too scared to leave their homes in fear of being racially profiled by the California Border Patrol and separated from families. At the 9 a.m. meeting, Supervisor Perez, you shared how not too many have spoken up about this at the 9 a.m. Board of Supervisors meeting. I come here to tell you that many of us don't speak up because we're scared. Last week, we witnessed terrorism be inflicted on our communities, and not one elected official intervened to stop it, not city, not county, and not statewide. While organizers, activists, and community leaders moved day and night to help ease the concerns and fears our communities faced, no one empowered did anything. CBP tore families apart and inflicted fear and terror. Lamont and Bakersfield store owners have shared that their once vibrant towns have turned into ghost towns. Their businesses are hurting. CBP is not only terrorizing our community, but affecting our local economy. As a first-generation immigrant, I recognize that this board does not reflect me, but you represent me. I will not exploit my own trauma and emotions to get you to move on this issue. I expect you to move because you represent me. I ask you to sit down with local leaders and listen to us. Make Kern County a sanctuary county and protect us. Our children are skipping school, going hungry because parents aren't going to work. We are scared to leave our houses. Be on the right side of history and do something. Thank you.
Anybody else like to address this board on matters that are within our jurisdiction but not on today's agenda? Please come down and give us your thoughts.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and address you guys. My name is Monica Mejia. I want to take a moment to address something critical. During today's morning meeting, Anna Medell stood to speak to the board and address you guys, and her idea was called dumb. After she sat down and could no longer respond. As someone in a position of power, Mr. Flores, it is unacceptable to respond aggressively to speakers, and it is equally concerning for a supervisor to remain silent when dismissive language, such as calling an idea dumb, is used. The idea to reallocate funds is not dumb. It reflects a growing call to examine whether our budgets truly meet the needs of our communities. Look no further than the devastating fires burning across Los Angeles right now. These fires highlight the consequences of diverting critical resources from emergency services. The fire department, struggling under budget cuts, is being asked to do more with less, leaving lives and homes at risk. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of defunding or reallocating funds, I urge you to ask for clarification instead of dismissing it outright. It's essential we understand the ideas being presented before rejecting them. Lastly, we should hold each other accountable and set a standard for professionalism. Instead of dismissive words, we can use language that encourages thoughtful dialogue, such as, "Your idea raises an interesting point. Let's explore its implications further." Furthermore, it's worth emphasizing that using taxpayer funds to pay administrative leave for officers accused of serious offenses like rape is what I believe is truly dumb. This is a misuse of resources, and we need to critically evaluate how we reallocate funds that could better serve the community. Thank you for your time, and I hope we can work together to promote a respectful and constructive dialogue in our meetings.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here to speak on matters that are within our jurisdiction but not before the board today? Okay, I see no one coming forward and no one punching in to talk about this portion, so we're going to move on to our board member announcements or reports. Gentlemen, anyone? Okay. We're going to move on to our planning item, or our hearing, our remaining item on this afternoon's agenda, which is a request of Nadeem Sarkis by LAV Pinnacle Engineering for a change in zone classification from limited agriculture to general commercial or a more restrictive district on an approximate 13.67 acre portion of an approximate 29 acre parcel, and a precise development plan for the construction of a convenience market and fuel island, fast food and retail establishments with associated site improvements on a 5.14 acre portion of an approximate 29 acre parcel located at the northeast corner of Rosedale Highway and Nord Avenue in Rosedale area. That was a mouthful. Thank you for your patience. I see that we have staff ready to go, teed up. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I have with me this afternoon Ms. Katrina Slayton. She is a division chief within our department. As you eloquently said, the project before your board today is a change in zone classification from A1, which is a limited agricultural designation, to C2PD, which is a general commercial precise development plan combining designation, all on approximately 13.67 acre site, which on this parcelization map is the area shown in green and the blue. And then this project also includes a PD plan that would authorize a 5,500 square foot convenience market with 10 fuel islands, a 2,580 square foot fast food restaurant with a drive-through, and then 2 additional retail facilities that would total 2,000 and 2,580 square feet respectively. That is the area shown in blue on this parcelization map. This project also includes 9 EV charging stations and a solar canopy. So the proposed commercial development before you today would total approximately 5.14 acres and is located at the northeast corner of Rosedale Highway and Nord Avenue in the Rosedale area within the administrative boundaries of the Western Rosedale Specific Plan. Access to the site is proposed off of both Rosedale Highway and then also Nord Avenue. So the applicant for the proposed project is Nadeem Sarkis, and he is represented by LAV Pinnacle. So the proposed development is located on a 29-acre parcel. That is the area completely outlined in red here. Per the adopted Western Rosedale Specific Plan, that 29-acre parcel has a split map code designation of estate residential to the north. And then it has a designation of GC, which is our general commercial designation, to the south. So this means that the southern half of this parcel has always been intended for future commercial development, while the northern portion of this property is designated for future residential development. The 29-acre parcel is currently zoned A1, which is our limited agricultural district. And again, while the existing A1 designation is consistent with the northern ER map code designation, the southern portion of the property is considered inconsistent and does need to be changed to reflect the general commercial map code designation. So the actions before your board today would address and resolve those inconsistencies between the adopted general plan designation and the existing zone classification. Currently, there's a single-family home that is located on site, and the corner of the property is being used as a plant nursery. Should your board approve this project, the single-family home will be demolished and the plant nursery operations will cease. As you can see on this aerial, the area surrounding the project site includes a mix of estate residential, agricultural, and commercial uses. The majority of the residential uses are located directly west of the site across Nord Avenue. Nord Avenue separates most of the residential properties from the project site, and Nord Avenue is designated as an arterial roadway, meaning that at full build-out, the roadway will span 110 feet. Currently, Nord is a 2-lane road that is approximately 60 feet in width overall, but is 68 feet at the intersection. Also, at this location, Rosedale Highway is width of 48 feet. Water service will be provided to the site from Vaughn Water Company. Additionally, the project applicant has requested an exception to the requirement to connect to public sewer and instead proposes the use of septic tanks. The Kern County Public Works Department has reviewed the request and is in support of the sewer exception. If this project is approved, the sewer exception will be brought to your board at your next hearing. During the course of processing this application, staff has notified surrounding property owners within 1,000 feet of the project site, along with affected agencies and departments. Staff received a total of 4 comment letters from public agencies that had specific requests for conditions that have been incorporated into the proposed project. In addition to the agency comments, staff received 9 comment letters from adjacent residential property owners who are opposed to the project due to increases in traffic, safety, impacts to wildlife, health effects, light and noise population, demand for additional gas stations, and then overall reduction of property values. So complete responses to these concerns can be found on pages 6 and 7 of your staff report. However, what I'd like to do is take a few moments to summarize the analysis that was conducted by staff. So regarding traffic, staff notes that the project is located adjacent to main roadways that provide critical access through metropolitan Bakersfield. A full and complete traffic study was prepared for this project, and based on that analysis, the Kern County Public Works Department has proposed a number of conditions that have been included as part of the staff report. The conditions include, first, condition 4A. Staff is recommending that this site be limited to a single access point on both Nord and Rosedale Highway. So if you can see on this existing site plan that was provided, while there is a single access point on Nord, currently as shown here, there are 2 access points on Rosedale Highway. If this project is approved with this condition, the project proponent will be required to revise that site plan so that there will only be 1 access point coming from Rosedale Highway. Condition 4G will require the payment of Metropolitan Bakersfield traffic impact fees. And then condition 6A, numbers 1 through 9, would require appropriate dedication and construction of type A roadway improvements with expanded intersections along the project site frontage for both Rosedale Highway and then also Nord Avenue. Regarding requests for a traffic signal at the intersection of Nord and Rosedale, the intersection and the requirement to construct a traffic signal is already included within the adopted Metropolitan Bakersfield Traffic Impact Program. As such, the payment of traffic impact fees are considered sufficient for implementation of the proposed commercial development. The actual construction of the traffic signal will be coordinated and implemented by the Kern County Public Works Department. That will be done at a time they believe is appropriate based on the most warranted use of the site. The Public Works Director, Joshua Champlin, is here if your board has any questions regarding how he implements the traffic impact program. Regarding overall maintenance of the site and safety concern, staff notes that the project site is currently mostly vacant, which can lead to increased opportunities for illegal dumping. Once development occurs on site, there will be a consistent use and presence, which should help regarding the various maintenance and dumping concerns that have been identified. Regarding wildlife, the property, again, currently has a single-family home and is being used as a plant nursery. With that, staff has included condition 6F that will require a pre-construction survey that would be performed by a qualified biologist that will ensure that no special status wildlife or plant species have occupied the property. If special status species are discovered, the project proponent will be required to work with the appropriate wildlife agency before construction operations can begin. Regarding potential health impacts associated with the underground gasoline tank storage and any possible links, your board should be advised that such developments are heavily regulated by the Kern County Environmental Health Department. These facilities are designed and regulated to ensure they do not leak and contaminate adjacent properties or water sources. Additionally, environmental health requires the underground storage tanks to be leak tested and monitored on a yearly basis. This facility and the tank specifically will require the holding tank to be double walled. As part of the grading and building permit process, the tank design will be reviewed and approved by environmental health, and no operations can occur until such time as that is done. Regarding light and noise pollution concerns, staff notes that the site has been identified for commercial development in accordance with the adopted land use designations within the Western Rosedale specific plan, and the development will be subject to the Kern County Dark Skies Ordinance requirements. The proposed commercial development is not considered a high noise generator, as such uses are typically neighborhood serving, and the proposed convenience market does not include a car wash. Additionally, the project site is located immediately adjacent Rosedale Highway, which is a major west to east connector roadway that runs through metropolitan Bakersfield, which typically generates vehicle noise. Regarding the demand for additional gas stations, the adopted policies of the Western Rosedale specific plan do not identify specific uses that should be limited to the perceived or realized overconcentration. Further, there are no identified criteria that would provide guidance to staff as to whether or not a specific gas station would qualify as overconcentrated for an area. Convenience markets provide different services and amenities, and they vary from site to site and operator to operator. Rather, our adopted policies within the specific and general plans focus on the creation of newly designated commercial centers with respect to the overall size, their width and depth, and then the location to other designated areas that would help to discourage spot zoning. Regarding those policies in this request, the proposed development does not represent a newly created commercial corner for purposes of land use. While the actual physical development may be new, this site has already been designated for commercial use. The project before your board represents the implementation of those previous decisions. And while compatibility of site-specific uses are always evaluated, proposed commercial developments are not typically evaluated in terms of market and overall demand as part of the land use consideration process. And then finally, regarding reduced property values, home values are determined based on several factors that include rates, market conditions, conditions of properties. The overall value is subjective, and while some individuals may value more rural lifestyles, others may value access to more commercial developments and fully constructed roadways and infrastructure. As of the time of this presentation, no evidence has been presented to staff that implementation of the project would have great impact on the existing property values of the residential properties adjacent to the site. The project was considered by the Kern County Planning Commission on November 14th, 2024. There were only 3 members of the Planning Commission present at that hearing. After staff provided an overview, 7 neighboring property owners spoke in opposition, citing concerns that I previously described. With a motion by Commissioner Nance and a second by Commissioner Ashley, the Planning Commission recommended by a vote of 2-1 in favor of the proposed project, with Commissioner Skidmore voting no. Staff has reviewed the project and believes that the proposed development is consistent with the adopted goals and policies of the Western Rosedale specific plan. The project site would not generate any traffic-related impacts to surrounding residential properties that would not be addressed through roadway and infrastructure improvements as conditioned as part of our project. The proposed uses are consistent and similar to those found adjacent to residential development throughout metropolitan Bakersfield, and implementation of the project would not be materially detrimental to the health and safety of the public or the residents in the area. The Planning Commission's recommendation is to adopt the resolution and recommended findings and enact ordinance approving the zone change as requested, adopt resolution and recommended findings approving the precise development plan, all subject to the recommended conditions of approval. That completes staff presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent presentation. Supervisor Flores and I were commenting on it. Thank you so much. That was thorough and excellent. I would ask if you had another planned part of the presentation, or otherwise I can go to public comment.
Madam Chair, you can go to public comment. I believe our applicant is in the audience.
Thank you so much. So can I ask, who is here to speak in favor of this project? In favor and opposed? Got it. Okay. So let me ask if our folks that are opposed, if you could give me a moment to hear from the applicant so you can hear their presentation, and then we're going to go to you and hear your side, and then the board is going to take action. So I'd ask the applicant to come down and please make your presentation. It could be helpful if you address some of the concerns that you can predict these folks here would like to be addressed, of course.
Sure.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Nadeem Sarkis. I'm the applicant for this anticipated project. Right now, the vacant land is a big source for dust, tumbleweeds, dumping, and a lot of complaints from the neighbors every day, every month, every week. We try to clean it as much as we can. We try to follow all the instruction, but still, we cannot get it the way they like to see it. And right now, we try to develop it to have a nice and great visual appearance for the land with nice street development. It's not going to be the streets we have now, where you have only one lane to turn right or left. The whole intersection will be improved, and I believe the developer, which is me, will pay for that, a big bunch of money. My project is completely consistent with the goal and policies that set forth by the Western Rosedale Specific Plan, which designated this site to be for commercial use. And this happened many years ago, not now. But because the site cannot accommodate commercial at the time they designated, it's state agriculture. So I believe it is time now to get the appropriate and the right designation to be commercial so we can develop the land. My project will provide services that's lacking in the surrounding vicinity while maintaining all the characters of the surrounding area. My project will provide at least 9 EV charging stations. So far, the nearest charging station to this location is on Rosedale and the 99 freeway, which is 9 miles east from my property. The other location is Stockdale and Buena Vista, which are about 5 to 6 miles from my location. There is no other EV charging station. So I will be the first to develop something on Rosedale Highway. My project will offer a lot of job opportunities to the local community, from entry-level job to a management job. We estimated at least 50 to 60 jobs will be created to manage and operate the services in the gas station, in the C-store, and of course the other small retails expected to fill in on these pads once it has been approved. The convenience store will provide a quick food service plus highly needed small household items which are not available in a radius of 3 to 5 miles if any of my neighbors need anything in the evening or at night, wherever, if they're coming from work. Developing commercial land or commercial property is known all over the United States, not just in California or Kern County, to increase the value of the surrounding properties. I never heard about commercial property and the surrounding area value goes down. No, it never happened this way. My project, once it's done, or at least the initial part of it, will generate significant higher tax revenue to our local community compared to what we're getting now just from a vacant land. I give some examples, and they have been studied, and they have a lot of proof for it, so it's not just a talk. Gas stations now, they have $0.63 local taxes for every gallon they produce. If this service station do just the average, which would be 150,000 gallons a month, this will end up $244,000 a month for the community, which is over $3 million just local taxes from the gas. We did not figure out yet the sales tax from the store. If this store will make at least on the 8.25% taxes, about $10,000 a month, this comes to $120,000 sales tax just from the local store. We did not talk about the other small properties or retails who they can have their own share to pay. Property tax right now is paid about $17,700 a year. Once this development happens and the assessment will go up, regardless I like it or not, it's estimated over $200,000 property tax just from this small corner, not even the whole property. Okay? I believe all these taxes, we need it for a lot of our public services in this area and the whole community. I appreciate the opportunity for hearing me, and if any questions, me and Mr. Wynn will be able to answer if we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you. I'm going to ask folks that are here to speak against the project to please come down. We'd like to hear from you now. Please state your name and give us your reasoning. Good afternoon and welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm Rebecca Riccomini, and I live about a quarter mile northwest of this project. And this project does not fit in this area at all. It's like putting an 18 apartments on the 18-hole golf course. That's as far as I'm concerned. You need to accommodate more the existing neighbors, which people all have horses, livestock. They keep putting in bike paths. We need bridle paths. We need to get the speed limit down. It's a state residential, not a freeway. And everybody in that area is either on private water wells or community water wells. And if he puts in gas stations, he has a leak, we're screwed. And if he takes care of that project like he's taken care of that lot, the 29 acres, you're looking for disaster waiting to happen. Look at the LA fires. I got pictures of what this place looks like now. And the part he's talking about is already cleaned up. That's where the nursery's at. The guy that put the nursery in, he cleaned it up. The neighbors have tried to clean it up. And all he had to do was get a burn permit to burn the tumbleweeds that were there. And the fire department said they would come and burn them for him because we had to get a burn permit to burn the tumbleweeds from his lot that came to our house and completely just covered the entire front. We couldn't get out the front door, we couldn't get out the side door because he does not take care of it. And another thing, we've been over backwards trying to help him. I've called him personally and told him about this and set it up with the fire department. He just blew us off. His neighbor to the east, he's the one that cleaned it up, and he was going to put a sheep out there. As soon as he got it cleaned up, he's got the nursery guy in there. Oh, I got a lease now. You can't have this. I don't know what kind of arrangements he made, but he did get a part of it to his neighbor for a sheep. But the rest of it, that's a state residential, it's a pit. And there hasn't been dumping. The only crap out there is his tumbleweeds. It's weeds about this high. And you're going to end up with fires like in LA. Those tumbleweeds, I got pictures of what it looks like now if you're willing to look at these, of what it does. And if for some reason you do approve this, we request that he make a block wall around it on the east side and the north side to confine his area and make it a mandate that he clean up the remaining part of it, keep it mowed down, disked up. The previous owners, we've been there for 20 years. They would come through maybe once or twice a year and disc it, and we never had a problem until he bought it. So if he can't maintain what he's got now, how can he maintain a gas station? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gosh, that's quite the tumbleweeds. My goodness. I don't think they're even native to California.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Anita Cottle, and my property backs Nord Avenue. This project would directly impact the reason I and many of my neighbors moved to this location. In 2017, I bought my house to live in a more rural community, get away from the noise, lights, and like most of my neighbors, we own horses or raise 4-H animals. Our acre lots are zoned for horses, livestock, and is a community based on this lifestyle. The surrounding parcels of property along Nord Avenue and Rosedale are agricultural parcels with almond orchards and row crops. This part of Bakersfield is still considered the country. Not only does this proposal directly compromise the quiet, country, and low-traffic benefits of our community, but it is a redundant service. Currently, we have a gas station and a fast food diner 3 miles west on the corner of Rosedale and Enos Lane. There is also a new commercial complex 4 miles away with a gas station, several fast food diners, a restaurant on the corner of Stockdale and Heath Road. In addition to the proposal not being beneficial to the surrounding community, it also provides little benefits for the surrounding traffic or travelers. Since I moved into my house, traffic patterns have significantly changed. Stockdale Highway has now become the new 58, which connects I-5 to the West Side Parkway through to Tehachapi. Since this change, there is no longer any big rigs and significant less car travel down Rosedale Highway past Nord Avenue. This traffic pattern change further proves the point that a gas station, convenience store, or fast food option at this location is not warranted or necessary. Lastly, I urge you to consider the safety of our neighborhood. The intersection of Nord Avenue and Rosedale Highway have had five fatalities since I have moved there in 2017. If the proposed zoning change to commercial is approved, it would cause more congestion and traffic at an already dangerous intersection. If you do approve this, I would ask that a traffic signal be required to be installed to help reduce any fatalities or accidents. Also, as stated by the previous speaker, I would ask that a brick retaining wall be placed or required to be placed around this commercial structure to reduce the noise and the lights. This is a very rural area, and any additional noise, even from a gas station, would really impact this community. Thank you, and I really do urge that you consider not approving this change.
Thank you, Ms. Cottle. Any other speakers? Please make your way on down. State your name for the record. Welcome. Good afternoon
Thank
to you.
My name's Scott Davis. I live 1 block west of this proposed gift service station. I just want to address a few things that he said. He said we have illegal dumping. Well, we're going to trade illegal dumping for homeless and the associated trash that comes with every mini mart around. That is not what we want in our neighborhood. We also, as she addressed, was the light. We don't want lights. That's why we moved out there. We like the rural area. It's not true that it's 5 miles to other services. It's within 2 or 3 miles. We can go to service stations, we can get fast food, we can get all that. The biggest thing I see, if we put a signal at Nord and Rosedale, if you're headed east on Rosedale, if that signal's red, people just turn left on our little residential streets. They're only like 8 houses long, but trust me, they don't shift down anymore. They got automatic transmissions. They come flying up the street. Somehow that needs to be mitigated. It's already a problem without a signal, because if they stack up, people automatically go to the shortest route, and that's up Stagecoach and that's up Carriage. So I really don't want this. I'm sure he wouldn't build this in his neighborhood. Nobody that I spoke to they weren't notified very far around, but nobody I've spoke to wants this project. He wants it, of course. We don't. We have to live with it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Davis, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing portion and return to the board for comments, questions, and potential action. I don't see anyone's punching us. Excuse me, Supervisor Peters, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I ask Mr. Murphy from the Planning Department to address some of the concerns that we heard, and what, if any, mitigations are in this project to address some of those?
Supervisor Peters through the chair. So a couple things that I can just touch base on is the comment specifically about this area being rural in nature and things along those lines, and this is not necessarily a good fit. That's kind of subjective as well, just in terms of kind of where you live and what you consider rural and things along those lines. This is a broader view of the existing zoning in place. So I do agree with the commenters that there are a number of more rural designations. We have a lot of property that's zoned A1. You have property that's zoned E, so that's 1 acre site. But at the same time, you have property that's R2, high density development R3. You have R2 that's right here. It's covered up here. We have that small commercial piece that is designated right here. So again, Western Rosedale is a mix of kind of rural in nature, and then as development has occurred, the uses kind of begin to mix a little bit as more and more proposed structures and developments happen as we go out west. Regarding some of the safety concerns, again, the project requires full street improvements. It is on an area where a signal would be required. And so, a lot of times people are concerned about things based on the existing environment. When you look at the land use, you also have to look at it as what would the built environment be once they finish with all of the requirements to widen the road, to provide the appropriate dedication. While there would be some additional traffic, you would also have safer conditions based on having a roadway. I can tell you that the traffic study indicated that from a level of service perspective, the gas station would actually have less than significant and I don't want to say minimal, but a lot less impacts in terms of the overall traffic generated just from this project specifically. Regarding the block wall, there's two things that I kind of want to touch base. So the existing development standards in the county require that a block wall be built when you have property that is adjacent to residential development. Now, this is a unique situation where the proposed development is this area in blue, which if built, would be adjacent to what would then be, if the zone change takes place, additional commercial zoning classifications. So technically speaking, this project would not by itself require a block wall around that immediate part of it, simply because the northern and eastern portions of the property would be designated for commercial. Now, at some point, when this would, if it ever would develop, you would be required to have the block wall on this area of the parcel, just simply because that would be the area that is touching the property that are designated for residential purposes. So with that being said, this is a PD plan, and your board does have the ability to implement whatever conditions you believe are appropriate to ensure compatibility. So again, we joke a lot of times that a PD plan is about how you ensure compatibility, just because, the underlying land uses are ones that are generally authorized, but how do you make sure it's compatible? And so your board would have the authority to kind of figure out what those conditions may or may not be to ensure compatibility in the surrounding area as a whole.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. This one's kind of a tough one for me. On the one hand, I definitely feel for the residents in that area. I was just talking with somebody this weekend about a field that I used to irrigate in high school is a Starbucks now. The orchard where I used to go dove hunting is a commercial development now, and the road I used to ride my horse down every day is a housing development. So there's a lot of growth happening. The city's expanding, and while it's definitely not something you always want to see coming from a residential point of view, that's just the nature of the town growing and expanding and moving outwards. So it's frustrating, and I understand that, but also growth is going to happen, and especially being in a government point of view, I tend to default towards not interfering as a government and telling people how they or what they can and can't do with their property. And while I might even be inclined to agree with you, I don't necessarily think that personally a gas station is there's a huge need for it here, considering how many are on there. Thankfully, I'm not in a position to consider that. I've got all I can do to make decisions in my own business. I definitely don't need to be making them for anybody else. But as far as how it's going to impact the neighborhood, I definitely understand those concerns and want to see what we can do to help address some of that. And I know traffic was brought up as a big concern. And as part of another project that was happening out in that area recently, I think Mr. Champlin might be able, our Director for Public Works might be able to speak a little bit more on that. But we had discussed putting traffic counters in some of the neighboring residential areas to see what kind of impacts this is having and what might need to be taken to minimize that, whether it's speed humps, whether it's traffic signals, or some other fix potentially. And if you would, Director Champlin, I wanted to just see if we've already begun looking at that, or if we've got plans to look at that in the near future.
Supervisor Peters through the chair. My staff has conducted those traffic counts. So what those traffic counts are going to do is they're going to give us a baseline for what the traffic patterns are like before that event center and before this ever get constructed. And so we can keep those historical counts, and then we can return later in the event that you approve this project and these get constructed. We can make those comparisons. But going back to what Mr. Murphy said, the traffic study did not reveal that a signal is warranted at the current time. There's 9 factors that we consider based on the California Manual for Uniform Traffic Control, and not one of them is satisfied for this development to move forward. And so we don't want to just build traffic signals without cause.
Okay, understood. I appreciate that. Let me see if there's any other questions I have on traffic. Yeah, if you would.
Can I ask you a little bit about that? This is the same intersection that we talked about 2-3 weeks ago?
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. Describe for me what that intersection will look like. When I say describe for me, what I'm looking for is, I think you told us last time, there would not be a median on Rosedale in this general area. But will there be a double striped, I don't know what they call that, a median, essentially the space for a median, and it's striped for median, but there's no concrete and there's no curb there.
So I'm remembering back to, I don't want to contradict myself, but I've slept since then. Because this road currently is just a two-lane road.
Right. So, and Mr. Murphy said there will be I forgot what you said, full build-out of the road. What does that mean? Is that the term you used?
I did, and I was referring specifically for Nord Avenue, specifically because when Nord Avenue is fully constructed to its full 110-foot wide, it would be 110 foot, 55 feet from center line on each side.
So Nord is considered an arterial?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So that's gonna be a major intersection one day down the road.
Yes, if development occurs and then the need becomes, and then as dedications and improvements are implemented, yes.
Okay.
So to answer your question, we don't build medians until both sides of the road are constructed out, because there's just not room for a median until both sides construct. So typically, when development occurs, one side gets built, and then when the opposite side of the street gets constructed by another development, that's when we go in and we start siting medians, because we have to have that space to be able to accommodate for that without causing traffic collisions and misaligning traffic going in opposite directions.
And so one day, many years from now, when there is enough traffic that warrants a signal and a widening of both Nord and Rosedale, Nord would become a 6-lane median divided road, 3 lanes each way. What would Rosedale look like?
The same.
The same, with a median,
Correct.
which addresses one of the, and I'm not trying to make excuses for this, what I'm trying to do is paint a little picture of the future and what residents could expect if this were approved. There was a concern about traffic coming down Rosedale, going east, and seeing a red light and saying, hey, I'm gonna cut through the neighborhood here because I wanna go, if I'm going north. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay. Ultimately, and this might not be in our lifetimes, it could be a long time, it depends on the pace of development, I get. But there would be a median one day on Rosedale that would not allow that.
That could be possible, but, I mean, the residents are gonna want access to their own properties, so most likely there's going to be,
But I don't think we would allow a left-hand turn in to the neighborhood. If I'm going east, left-hand turn going,
it could be discussed at the time, but we do allow those to occur.
that
Because we
close
have,
to an intersection though? I don't think
well,
it's,
I mean, there's two streets there, so maybe the furthest west would be allowed one entry into that, in the neighborhood, but that would be discussed at the time. I don't wanna say that this is never gonna, this signal and median is never gonna get constructed until it goes to the full 6 lanes.
I understand.
What we
I
look
understand.
at is the warrants, and so as time goes on, we continue to work with District 1, and we, you know, when requested by the residents to the supervisor, even to our department, we could do new traffic counts. And the Metro Bakersfield area, we call them levels of service, and they go A to F. A is the best, and that's what it is today, and
Right.
that's what it says it'll remain after the construction of this project. But if it ever drops below a level of service C, which means the wait times at that intersection get so long, we don't want to, you know, we want to accommodate people and then their time, then that's the time that we step in, and the Public Works Department will build that signal.
I drive that road, not frequently, but occasionally, and I wasn't aware of any fatalities there. Can you check on that? If there's that many fatalities, I think that was mentioned.
So we've looked at the collisions. I didn't go back as far as 2017, but I do, the industry standard is the last 3 years. So I do have the last 3 years worth of collisions. In that time, there've been 12 collisions, no fatalities. We've made some recent improvements. We put they call them rapid flashing rectangular signs out there, and so they kind of grab the attention, because Rosedale Highway it's a yield by Nord. There's no stop, I believe, on Rosedale. So what we were seeing is people were pulling out of Nord and getting broadsided. And so part of those 9 metrics for warranting a signal is, before a signal, is there anything else that the agency can do to make the intersection more safe? And so we've gone to that step, and maybe that's, I can't say for certain, but in the last 3 years, there's been no fatalities. There's been 7 people injured as a result of the broadsides, but there's been no fatalities in the last 3 years.
Is the first step before you would have a full signalized intersection to have a 4-way stop, typically?
That could be looked at, but there's also the predominant leg of it, and there's a subordinate leg of an intersection depending on the traffic counts. And if the dominant leg has high enough counts, then we try not to stop that one for the convenience of the traveling public. But it is an
Which is
option.
Rosedale.
Which is Rosedale.
Okay. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you. Great questions. The number you mentioned, 12 collisions in the last 3 years, I don't know what's typical for an area like that, but that does seem kind of inordinately high. Is that, I mean, higher than what you would assume for an area like that?
I can't say that it's higher than other intersections. It is important to note that most of these happen during the daytime hours too, so I wanted to make that point. So it can't be completely attributed to the darkness. For some reason, a lot of these occur during the daytime hours, and so I don't know if it's drivers just not paying attention, but it's mostly people coming southbound on Nord, trying to make a left-hand turn across traffic to head east out of there. That's where most of the broadsides are occurring. We certainly have intersections with higher traffic incidents, but it averages, 4 per year. Certainly 1 per year is too much for us to want.
Right. Is that something that, and this might be a question for Mr. Murphy, but just thinking that through, somebody going and trying to make a southbound on Nord and turning to go east onto Rosedale, that would probably increase, I would imagine, having that there on that corner and people pulling out of the gas station. Is there something that can be done to mitigate that?
Supervisor Peter, through the chair. So, again, not having it in front of me specifically, why that happens, there could be a number of reasons, as was discussed. An expanded intersection might allow a better visual sight, requirements to make sure that the vegetation remains low at the intersection so that people that when they approach Rosedale Highway and they kind of look to the left, make sure they have a clear visual path, may have something to do with it. Again, right now, when it's zoned A, it's kind of a little bit of a free-for-all. There isn't any developments. Like you're supposed to have your setbacks that you're away from the road. But until a development really happens, a lot of times things are right up to the road that maybe really shouldn't be there. So, there's a possibility that once approved and you have the expanded intersection, you have a development that has clear line of sights, you are ensuring that nothing is in the right-of-way, you're creating a better environment to make those turns just simply because of line of sight and able to see. Short of that specifically, or then any short of specific restriping or other traffic improvements, which Mr. Champlin is much better able to kind of provide that. I don't necessarily have anything from a land use other to offer than this will be required to ensure that all setbacks are adhered to and that there's appropriate line of sight and that nothing gets built that would impede that as part of the proposed development.
I guess I'm thinking more about the project specifically, and first one that comes to mind is there's a gas station on 178 out by Rio Bravo, and you're going down 178 and there's a point to turn into the gas station, but you can't exit back out through that same point onto 178. Yeah, exactly. So if that could be maybe a condition where people could still turn into the gas station, but people aren't trying to come out and shoot across Rosedale Highway.
So from that perspective, what you're indicating is that you would rather, if people need to go eastbound on Rosedale Highway, sorry, I'm getting used to this.
Yeah, no problem.
It sticks up here. Clearly, you have an intersection, or not an intersection, you have an ingress and egress up here where people would come up, turn south, and kind of go through here. What you're indicating is that the single point of access, you're asking if whether or not there should be a condition that specifically says right in only, and that they can't exit out, so that they're trying to cross Rosedale Highway while they're going eastbound.
Right.
So again, I believe that's an absolute condition that's appropriate. I would ask Mr. Champlin if he concurs that, again, we are only going to have one access point now, based on the conditions now, whether or not he believes it's appropriate to have that as a right-in only with no egress. Now, what that would do, though, is it would specifically make sure that anyone leaving would have to exit here, and then if they ended up wanting to continue going eastbound, they would have to come down Nord and then make that left turn on Rosedale Highway as well.
Yeah, I don't know that that's the right answer necessarily, but I wouldn't imagine that we want to encourage anybody to exit and shoot across 2 lanes of traffic right before an intersection to turn east on that. I don't know if that's something we would typically allow.
The only thing that gives me pause is that we have this situation throughout the county. And
Okay.
so do we want to break from the kind of precedent that has existed where we've allowed this in the past for this intersection? I would say certainly when there's a median there, that will be prohibited for sure. And that's my only reservation is to take away that turning movement. But back to your question about the intersection, the traffic signal is what would ultimately make this safer. I think I'll speak on behalf of Mr. Murphy, we spoke earlier, but because the traffic study doesn't warrant a traffic signal, we don't believe it's appropriate to put that on the developer. If at any time, and I don't want to wait for accidents to happen to build a signal, and I think your office and mine should have that discussion. What we are asking the applicant, and they're willing to do, is pay their share into the traffic impact fee program. And on that fee program, there's a list of projects, a long list, and this signal is one of them. And so it's not appropriate for them to construct the entire signal, but they are going to, when they pull their building permit for those gas pumps, the traffic impact fee for a development like this is somewhere approaching $200,000. So it's not insignificant. But we believe a traffic signal of that nature is about $500,000. Well, that cumulative fee paid by all developers in the area contributes to that. And so that's something where the Public Works Department, in working with your office, we could explore constructing that signal, going that route.
Understood. I appreciate it. I think that's all the traffic-related questions that I had. A couple more questions. One of the other issues that was brought up, 2 issues actually, were noise and lights getting into the adjacent neighborhood. Are there any conditions as of right now in the plan as far as, the lights can't be pointing down into people's backyards, or certain height requirements or anything like that for lights? Or
Supervisor Peters through the chair. Yes, we have our adopted zoning ordinance has the dark skies chapter, which specifically requires shielding of all lights. They're not allowed to shine onto adjacent properties and things along those lines. So yes, this project would be fully compatible with the adopted dark skies ordinance that is in place within the county.
Okay. Let me see. And 2 more points, and then I'll turn it back over to the rest of the board. But gas tank leaks were brought up, and I know you had addressed that with double wall containment and the different mitigations that are already in place that they have to comply with. But that is a concern for neighbors with small municipal water companies around there, how it could impact their water, how it could potentially impact their accessibility to. I don't know where the wells are for this specific municipal water company or how that's set up, but are there any mitigations in place for that, or any concerns that the county has at this point?
Supervisor Peters through the chair. So I had this specific conversation with Amy Rutledge with Environmental Health today. I do know that at the Planning Commission hearing, there was a comment that was made that at some point in the future, there may be a well or something else that would be proposed to be drilled on that particular site adjacent to Nord Avenue. So in talking to Ms. Rutledge, she referred me to their standards, and again, the design of this particular tank, it is a permit that is done through Environmental Health, and it's completely regulated by Environmental Health. It's deferred locally. If there were ever a contamination, then it kind of gets bumped up to the Regional Water Quality Control Board. But as the initial permitting, it is the local agency's responsibility, and in our case, it's Environmental Health. So in talking to her, she said there's not a specific setback or anything that's required. They're looking at specifically the design and to make sure that how it's designed would prevent any of those leaks. She said that this is a new project that's proposed, so it clearly has to be designed to the highest standards that we have. If a well were ever proposed in the area, part of that goes through and looks at contamination, and so the county would never authorize a new well to be drilled anywhere where there was potential contamination. But in that conversation, she believes that the design, the required for yearly monitoring and testing to make sure that it doesn't leak is the standard in which the county adheres for all of its particular projects. And again, her indication was, that's how it would be evaluated, and it would be built to the highest, most appropriate standards that are. They've been going back for previous years. They've actually been requiring older single wall tanks to be replaced with a newer standard. So she wanted to make sure that it was clear that this one will have to be at the highest standard that is afforded at this time.
Okay, so in a condensed down version, we don't believe that would impact their ability to drill that well in the future?
That is correct. We believe that the design would make sure that there is no leakage that would occur.
And then lastly, this is probably beside the point, I think, for this, but it's something that I would like us to consider in the future. But I've heard from several people about the 1,000-foot notification area, that was kind of a concern, because especially some of the houses that might be outside of that 1,000-foot area are still going to be impacted potentially by, increased traffic through the neighborhoods and, a few other things like that. So maybe on a case-by-case basis, we can look at when it's necessary to expand that out, and maybe if it's impacting the road going into a neighborhood, we notify that entire neighborhood instead of just the 1,000 feet radius.
Supervisor Peters, through the chair, yes, we can look at that. I do believe that if we were going to change some of the overall process, I think we would want some specific input. Right now, the foot notification is adopted as part of our zoning ordinance, and it goes back years. I know that at one time, there was a potential, should the notification be larger, smaller? You have that conversation about the total cost to mail out, whether it's an applicant project or a county project. And then you have, I know the city of Bakersfield has sign requirements where they put signs up there. I know that, again, this goes back years ago. At the time, the recommendation was, well, we should pretty be uniform throughout the county. Well, in areas of the county that are subject to high winds and you have other concerns, the signs actually were more of a nuisance and a hazard than they were beneficial to anybody. So we will continue to explore that. I believe that it'd probably be appropriate to kind of get, you mentioned some of your thoughts or whatever, so that we can kind of look to see whether or not any of that should be changed. And then we would also clearly need to coordinate with county council to make sure that we don't separate out one particular site, and we need to have the standard by which we kind of go through. So that would be the only concern that I would have. It would take a little bit more coordination to kind of see what would be the most appropriate to do any of that aspect of it.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, that's all my comments for now. Thanks.
Thank you. I see Supervisor Couch has punched in.
I wanted to make a comment about the signage as a notification. I was in the knockdown, drag-out, bloody fight over whether or not the city of Bakersfield should erect a sign or two. I've forgotten sometimes it could require more than one if it's a very, very large parcel. I think we should do that. And I think we should, my question to you is, could it be done, for example, inside the sphere of influence of a city, but in an unincorporated area, if that city also requires that? In other words, could we do it here in Metro Bakersfield if the city of Bakersfield requires it? But if Arvin doesn't, then we wouldn't need to do it out in the Arvin area?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair. The answer, I believe, is yes. Again, I think the question is just making sure that we're consistent in terms of how it's implemented, and that would just take coordination on our part to figure out how we designed it. Is it this what the standard is? And then, going through and making sure that it's incorporated into our appropriate documents that discuss the notifications. But the short answer to your question is yes, I believe that we can make it whatever we believe is most appropriate.
Okay, I don't know how to get that rolling. Maybe you could bring that back for discussion one of these days when you can, for us to give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Additionally, and I know I mentioned this the last time, and we just haven't talked about it, but it hasn't been very long. I really do want to have a discussion about Rosedale Highway. A long time ago, I'm old enough to remember, the reason Rosedale Highway has so many curb cuts and so many driveways is because, quite frankly, they just didn't think about it at the time. Well, we're the people that are supposed to think about it. And Rosedale Highway is going to develop over time from 99 to I-5. And we might as well come up with some standards eventually. I know the city of Bakersfield did that with the county and with Shafter along 7 Standard Road. And so far, it's worked pretty well. I just want us to have that discussion one of these days. Maybe it needs to be a committee that can discuss that and bring back a recommendation, but I just think that's important. This is the second time in about a month that the issue kind of bubbles up. So that's a comment. If my colleagues are interested in that, I'd be willing to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Parlier.
Thank you, and maybe the applicant can answer this question too. And besides the footprint of the project itself, the larger property under the control of the applicant, can you answer maybe the tumbleweed question and maybe some goodwill towards the neighbors to mitigate that?
First of all, I don't know from where she got these pictures. She's showing some pictures for tumbleweed like covering a house. It never been this way in the property. I know there is tumbleweeds, and we keep cleaning at least 2 to 3 times a year, even before I receive a notice from the county that there is tumbleweed need to be cleaned. And she's talking about that the nursery guy doing something, whatever. I don't know what she's talking about. The nursery gentleman, the only reason I agreed for him to bring some nursery there because there was a lot of problems with the existing house. A lot of homeless, drug dealers, a lot of everything. This guy came in and said, I will clean it, I will take care of it, I will be there. I said, fine, thank you very much, do it. And on the east of it, the property owner, I know him very well. And he is the one, he said, would you mind if I put some grass or something for my sheep? I said, fine, do it. Again, to keep it clean as much as we can. So the tumbleweed problem has been taken care of for at least for the last 2 to 3 years. It doesn't mean it does not exist. It will exist, and it will come back. And I have to send my people to clean it again.
Okay, well, this is Supervisor Peters' area, and whatever his recommendation is, I'm going with him. But I guess my ask would be in the broader, relationship of good neighbors.
Yes.
If there is an area under your sphere of influence that you have communication and maybe mitigate those issues of tumbleweeds.
I would be more than happy if I received a phone call from a county or from the neighbors that my people will be there the next day to take care of it.
I'll leave it at
Because
that.
I have my people, and they are willing to do it. They are paid for that. They are not doing it for free.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Couch, punch back in.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment. What I'm hearing you say is you're going to do a lot better job of cleaning the tumbleweeds up from now on, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And you can go and check next week, and you see how it is. Thank you.
Very good. Supervisor Couch will keep us updated, I'm sure. Thank you. I mean that. Supervisor Peters?
Thank you. I understand the frustration with this, and like I said, I just have a hard time government stepping in and telling somebody what they can and can't do with their property, but we also want to make sure that they're good neighbors. And so we'll be paying close attention to this and trying to make sure that they can comply with all of the requirements that have been put on them through this plan. But I'm going to make a motion on staff's recommendation.
I'll second that motion, Supervisor Peters.
Thank you for the motion, thank you for the second, and for the very thorough discussion to address the concerns that are here. I am so sorry when things do not go how you exactly want them to. That's life, as you know, normally. But being here is so important to put all of this on the record, to hold the applicant accountable. Supervisor Couch is not going to forget this, I promise you, and neither will Supervisor Peters. Sometimes that's kind of the best you get, But being here is so critical, voicing your concerns, being able to hear those, being open to listening to them, and understanding how important, as Supervisor Parlier said, in the spirit of good neighborliness, that we can have this conversation. And hopefully you hear how important this is to these folks and how much of their heart and life is invested into the lifestyle that they care for so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience and for your understanding. These are hard issues. They always are. Supervisor Peters, great job parsing through them. Thank you. Best of luck to all of you. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Mr. Parley? Oh, I know. Let's start over.
Okay.
Hold on.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Okay, the motion is approved, all ayes.
Excellent. Thank you for an excellent day. We will adjourn now with the appropriate motion and return January 28th.
So moved.
Thank you, Supervisor. We are adjourned.